and then being persistent. Don't quit. Just don't quit no matter what. Just keep going until you get to your destination. And every successful person that I've ever read about has gone through those seven secrets, 7 steps. And anybody can do it. It's just a matter of learning about them and doing them.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. So lately we've been talking a lot about mindset and changing the way that you look at things and changing, your past to move forward. So today we're going to talk with Dennis Henson, who wrote a book about taking a daily step every day to change your life. Correct, Dennis?
Yes, it's about
So
reading something positive each day that moves you towards your ultimate goal.
So I get that. I understand what that means, but I also know that it has to be a little bit more than just the reading, because you can read things, but you have to take action.
That's true. That's true. When I left band directing back in 1975, and I went to work in the business world, and the first thing that happened was the company that hired me gave me 3 books. They gave me Think and Grow Rich, Success, The Glenn Bland Method, and The Greatest Salesman in the World. Well, I had never been exposed to motivational books or self-help books. And when I finished reading those, I was a different person. I mean, I was exhilarated. I was on fire. I couldn't wait to get out and, make my place. So I was extremely successful from the very first day. And I was addicted to books. I wanted to read another book that made me feel that way. So when I found another one, I read 10 more, but when I found another one that was really powerful, I said, well, I'm going to keep a list. Now, this was in 75, so 50 years ago. So since then, I've been keeping a list of the books that move me, the really powerful books, and poems and quotes and short stories. So one day on a podcast, the host said, Dennis, you're a great teacher. Why are your students so successful? And I said, well, I haven't changed their habits. If they can form success habits, they'll become really successful quickly. And then he said, well, what's the number one success habit? And I said, if they form the habit of reading something positive every day that moves them toward their ultimate goal, they will become successful much faster. So after the podcast was over, I thought, that was a good answer. Wouldn't it be wonderful if someone would come up with some book or app or something to help people form that habit? And then I realized I had already written the book. I'd written it over the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. All I had to do was just put it together, and I would have a book that people could use regardless of their time. Paula, everyone's busy. You're busy, I'm busy. Everyone that's listening in is busy, and they don't have time to form a new habit. They'll just say, well, I just don't have time to do that. But with this book, if you have 5 minutes, you can read a motivational poem. If you have a few seconds, you can read a quote. If you have 30 minutes, you can read one of the stories, and those stories are really powerful and cathartic. They'll make you cry. Or if you have a long period of time, you can read one of the books that I've collected over the past 50 years. And I'll guarantee you this, once you form this habit, your life will change, because it's like putting a rudder on a boat. Before you can use the magic formula in the book, you first have to decide what you want. Do you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer? You want to be a professional ball player? You have to decide first before you can start reading something that moves you in that direction. And then every day, your habit reminds you of where you're going. Because the human mind goes in 1,000 different directions. You wake up one day and you're going to do this, and the next day you're going to do something else. But if you have a purpose and a burning desire, and you read something positive about it every day, or listen, or both, then you'll get there so much faster. And the proof is in all of the business students that I've taught. Some of my students are the most successful business people in the state of Texas. That's pretty powerful. And it's just because they form the right habits.
Well, I think, well, anything in life, if you want to lose weight or you want to get healthy, you know, uh, grow in any shape, you have to have good habits. But I think
That,
for a lot of people, they struggle with life getting in the way of doing those things that are positive. So for myself personally, I before I even get out of bed, I'm I'm reading something that kind of projects me into the day of thinking positive and taking those steps forward. And that's I've started that I think about 60 days ago, and I'm noticing so many changes in my life. But I had to do it before I got out of bed, because once I got out of bed, I didn't do it, and I was off doing the things I needed to do. So for me, it was very important to have that right on my nightstand and ready to go.
well, when you first wake up, your mind is in a different level, a different wavelength, which is really the very best time for you to do your affirmations and your gratitude and read something positive. You've picked the right time.
Yeah, it's just like but you have to, right now I'm reading that book, 5 a.m. Have you read that book?
No,
Oh, it's really good. I like the way the author has written it. But it's about getting up at 5 a.m. and then starting that whole thing about gratitude and doing that the most successful people get up in the morning early and take some time for themselves before they start
right,
the day, versus getting up and jumping into taking care of the kids or, getting ready for work. It's just, you got to take that time for yourself. And it's a good opportunity to learn when you're fresh and your mind is open.
exactly.
So I have to ask this. I want to know your favorite quote, your number one favorite quote, and then followed by your number one favorite book.
Wow, that's. I have so many favorites that it's hard to come up, but I did have to prioritize the books in the back. And the first book in the listed in the back is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Have you read
Hmm.
that book?
I read it a long time ago, but it is actually on my list again. I picked it up, I don't know, probably about 30 days ago, and it's just sitting there because I have to finish what I started. I just finished Think Like a Monk, and now I read U Squared, and now I'm into the 5 a.m. And then that's the next book that I'm going to read is Think and Grow Rich. I'm like you, I'm constantly reading, and like it's hard, like when you read a book, to remember everything and implement it. But if you can pick one or two things from that book
Yes.
that causes you to make some changes in your life, I think that's the ultimate goal. And if you can't read, audiobooks are sometimes the best way to learn.
Yeah, I listen to audiobooks when I'm walking. Another great book is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ogmandino. Even if you're not a
Not
salesman,
familiar with that.
yes, the scrolls in the back of that book are habits. And if you form those habits, it's not about being a salesman, it's about being a success in life. And even if you've never read it and you're turned off because it says salesman, don't worry about that. It's a short book and it's fun, it's easy to read, it's got a great story in the beginning, and then in the back it has these scrolls. And the scrolls, when I first read those, I thought, I'm going to do this because it says make habits of these things. I thought, I'm going to do this because this is really powerful. And it really has been. I still remember the scroll that said, I will form good habits and become their slave. and you'd ask me for my favorite quote, that's probably the quote that goes through my mind more than any other, and that's by Ogmandino. And by the way, in my book, Real Impact Daily Inspiration, Ogmandino's story is in there, and it is really a powerful story. He almost, we almost didn't have Ogmandino. He almost took his own life because
Oh, wow.
he reached the absolute bottom, sleeping on the sidewalk in the snow and with nothing. And then he turned around and became one of the most successful authors. So it's a great story, and it tells how he turned his life around.
Well, I think most of the time people turn their life around because they've gone through something that's been somewhat painful. It could be a job loss or a death or a divorce, and it causes them to really look at their life and say, "Hey, this isn't the life that I want, and so I'm going to have to make some changes." And
Right.
realistically, if you could, pick up your book and just read one positive thing every morning, you'll start to look for the positive things that are happening in your life instead of focusing on the negative.
Right. I don't know if you've seen the book, but oops, can you see that? On the cover of the
Oh, it's
book,
got a genie bottle.
it's a lamp. That's right. It's Aladdin's lamp. And Aladdin was a young man who found an old lamp, and he was cleaning it, and he rubbed it, and he realized that it had magic powers, that it would grant, that the genie would grant him any wish. But here was the trick. He had to decide what his wishes were. He had to know what he wanted before he could get anything. Well, that parallels real life. If you do not know what you want, then you're going to end up doing what someone else wants. You'll end up going to
Hmm.
work every day, coming home, maybe having a beer and watching TV and going to bed and getting up and doing the same thing. And that may be rewarding for some people, but most people have a more adventurous spirit than that. So they'll think, well, I'd really love to be a nurse, you know. Then their butts get in the way. I'd love to be a nurse, but I don't have the education. Or but I don't have the money. Or but, you know, at one time I knew a lady that wanted to be a nurse so bad, that's all she talked about. And I used to say, look, if you want to be a nurse, then be a nurse. She said, oh, yes, but you have to go to college, you have to pass this hard test. She kept telling me all these but. And I said, well, get your butts out of the way and change them to ands. I would love to be a nurse, and I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to college, and I'm going to pass the test. So people talk themselves out of doing
Oh, yes. Yes,
wonderful
we do,
things.
don't we? We spend a lot
Yeah,
of time talking. It's that whole paradigm of your past and what you were taught as a kid or your friends or, teachers in school that influence that inner child within ourself that says, "Wait, stop. I can't. I'm in fear. I'm fear that I'm going to fail or I couldn't do that." And it is so simple. And I know it sounds simple, and it is simple to say, but I can. I can. Just believe that you can and take one step forward to making that stuff happen. Got to change the narrative.
exactly. That's called getting your mind right. If you have a negative mind and a negative disposition, you're going to have a problem. It's going to be hard to connect with people. You're not going to be able to reach your goals or fulfill your life's destination. If you can change, and I did this in 75 when I read those books, if you can change your mindset to a positive mindset, where I call it killing ants every day. I kill ants every day. An ant is any negative thought sequence, ANTS, any negative thought. So if you have a negative thought, you think, well, I don't like that person because you think, well, wait, whoa. That's a negative thought. I'm not going to think that. So you get to control what you think. Or you think, well, I don't feel good today. No, 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 no. No, that's a negative thought. Maybe you don't feel good, but you don't think about it. You think about positive things. I, I like to tell my students to take the G vitamin because the G vitamin will fix that really fast. It'll lower your blood pressure. You won't have heart attacks or strokes. You'll live longer. You'll feel better. You'll think more clearly. And the G vitamin is free. It's called gratitude.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you're grateful, you can't be sad or upset and grateful at the same time.
It's
It's the
easier to be grateful than it is. It's harder to be negative than it is to be positive. I mean, you really have to think about being negative. When you talk about that person that you don't like, you can't tell me there's one good quality within that person that you could focus on that instead.
right. Absolutely.
And then that changes
Yeah.
the way you think for that moment. And it changes the way you think about that person. Doesn't mean that person needs to be in your life, but looking at them and looking at them with your eyes open and finding something grateful about them makes you look at everything that way. Like, even if there's a rainstorm going on, you can look at that and say, well, the grass, that's grateful because the grass needs that, and the flowers. I mean, there's always a positive in everything.
Yes. When I was a young boy, if I ever was sad or moping around the house, my mother made me sit down and count my blessings. And in 5 minutes, I was out playing because you can't count your blessings and be upset and be sad. So you can't go in two directions at one time. I mean, I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and if you go north, you go to Oklahoma. If you go south, you go to Waco. You can't go both places at the same time. You can
Right,
only go
right.
one. You got to pick one.
I like that. I like that whenever you feel down or something, just to count your blessings for that moment. And then you're focusing on positive things.
Exactly.
Hmm. Good life lesson there.
Wonderful. In fact, I would like to do something nice. It makes me feel good to do something nice. I'd like to do something nice for you and for everyone that's tuning in. If you will agree, I'd like to give them all one of the books in ebook form.
Oh,
No,
nice.
no charge, no strings. If you'll go to realimpactbook.com, then scroll all the way to the bottom where it says podcast attendee.
Okay.
Then you have three gifts there. It's kind of like the magic, uh, Aladdin's magic genie. You have three gifts there. The second one is an instant download. You just click on it, put your name and email, and it will instantly, not tomorrow, not in 5 minutes, instantly send you a download of the entire book. And you will not be put on an email list. Now, there's another link there that says, if you want to be notified when I write other books, if you click that, then I will notify you when I write other books. But that's the only emails you'll ever get from me. And I hope that
That's
you'll take this
wonderful.
book.
That's
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I know that people will read it and they'll think, oh, my cousin could use this because he's going through a hard time. Or I have a friend that's a salesman. Or my grandson's graduation's coming. And I can buy him the deluxe edition, or granddaughter, college or high school graduates would love this. It's the perfect timing for them to help plan their future. So I know I didn't write this book to make $1 million, but I did write it to help 1 million people. And if I can help 1 million people get what they want, I get what I want. That's a Zig Ziglar quote.
How do you keep all those quotes in your head? I mean, I think it's funny because like men can watch a movie and quote it forever. A woman watches a movie and she can't quote anything. So how do you keep that all in your head? All those quotes?
Repetition. if you go through if you go through hard times, you have to reach in and pull things that pull you out. There's a poem in the book called "Don't Quit." You may be familiar with it. You know, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when funds are low and debts are high, when you want to smile, but you've got to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. That's pulled me through a lot of hard times. Of course, the poem's longer than that, and I know the rest of it, but I won't bore you with it right now. You can read it, or you can get the audio book and listen to it.
The let's go back to that again about when you talked about the woman who wanted to be a nurse. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to kind of want to know or kind of figure out what it is that they want to be. I mean, I think about my son, he's 25, and he's a smart kid, he's an awesome kid, but when you ask him what it isn't that you want to do, he's just like, I don't know. Like, he goes, I just don't know. And I struggle to help him figure that out and we come to no conclusion, because I don't know what's in his thought process that he can't figure it out. And it's so hard when you're that young to know what it is that you want to do.
Well, here's a process that will help. Have him write down 20 things that he's good at. 20 things that, maybe he's good at arithmetic, maybe he's good at writing, or maybe he's good at writing. Just write down 20 things that he's really good at, and then prioritize those. Which one are you best at, and second and third? Then write down another list of 20 things that you love. I mean, you really love. Maybe it's sports, or maybe it's travel, or maybe it's girls. I don't know. Just write down 20 things that you absolutely love. And then look at the two lists and, prioritize them, and look at the top 5 things on each of the lists and say, what profession or what is it that people do that do those top 5 things? And would you feel comfortable doing that? And of course they would. Of course he would, because it's his favorite things already. And then say there's no limit. There's no, money is not an object. Education is not an object. Who you know is not an object. There's no limit, object. Then if you find something there, let's just say maybe he wants to become an attorney. Well, when Abraham Lincoln was a young man, he was not very lucky. He failed at everything he ever tried. And he only
and look at him, he became president.
Yeah, he had less than a first grade education and no money. Well, he came into possession of some old English law books. It was a whole set. It was like an encyclopedia of old English law, and he loved to read. So he devoured them. He read them, and he thought, oh, this is just wonderful. I just love this. So he started going to trials and going to court and listened to the people talking back and forth. And he looked around the courtroom and he thought, this feels like home. I really love it here. I'm going to become an attorney. Now, this was a guy who was broke, less than a first grade education, didn't have very good control of the English language. His parents were illiterate. And he's decided now he's going to become an attorney in Illinois. He's going to pass the Illinois bar and become an attorney. And he did it. But the reason that he did it was because he knew what he wanted, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. By the way, the lady that I was telling you about is a retired nurse now. She became a nurse, and she's already, been through it and retired. She was a great nurse, and it was just a matter of her changing her mind about what she could do. And that's what this book is about. It's about changing your mind, getting your mind. Of the 7 secrets of success, which is another book, the number one secret is getting your mind right. The second one is to seek wisdom. Of course, I mean, you're going to have to learn about what you're doing. Develop skills. Every business, sport has skills have to be developed. Make detailed plans. Take massive action. Now, massive action is different from action. Massive action is doing more than anybody else would even think of doing. Getting up earlier, staying later, working through the weekends. Doesn't matter what the weather is, you just keep going. Form great alliances. A lot of people are out there that can help you. And then being persistent. Don't quit. Just don't quit, no matter what. Just keep going until you get to your destination. And every successful person that I've ever read about has gone through those 7 secrets, 7 steps. And anybody can do it. It's just a matter of learning about them and doing them.
Yeah, I think most people get stuck on the massive steps or massive action
But
steps. Like they just don't, and I think it's where you get those alliances and the people around you that, are there to support you and
yeah,
help you keep you
if
on
you're
track
if you're
sometimes.
working if you're working on a burning desire, the massive action is no longer hard. It's easy. You look
Oh,
forward to getting
okay.
up in the morning, and you want to work late, and you don't want to stop on the weekend. It's once your mind is right and you have a goal and a burning desire, and of course that's in Think and Grow Rich, but you have to, if you develop a burning desire, I'll tell you a story. When I was in high school, I was the worst student in high school. I hated school. I didn't like the teachers. I didn't like going to class. I told my mother I was sick to get to stay home. The only thing I wanted to do at school was go to the band room and play the drums. That's it. Everything else was boring. I would look at the clock on the wall and count the seconds until the period was up. And I'd look forward to the buses coming in the afternoon to get out of there. I hated it. And the best time of the year was summer because I didn't have to be in school. And when I graduated, it was going to be summer for the rest of my life. I was going to be out of prison. I had never thought of going to college, actually was failing in school. One day they said, well, we're going to have an assembly over the intercom. An assembly meant no class. You get to go to the,
Yeah.
you got to get out of class that afternoon. I thought, I don't care what it is, I'm glad we're going. So I went to the auditorium and there was a college band there and they played their spring concert. And I thought, that's good, I'm in the band, I like this, the music was okay. But at the end of it, the band director turned around and said, well, we brought a little treat. We brought our marching drum section and they want to put on a little show. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Drumline
Oh,
from 2002.
yeah,
Okay,
they're impressive.
this was in 1962. This was 40 years before that, and they were doing what they did on that drum line. And when I saw that, my head just exploded. I could just feel the earth move under my feet. I ran to my band director and I said, how can I get in that drum section? I've got to be in that. I've got to be in it. And he looked at me and he said, well, you'll have to go to college. And he said, Dennis, with your grades, they'll
You're
never
not
let you in
happening, yeah.
college. And I said, if I change my grades, can I be in that drum section? And he said, well, if you don't, you never will. So I went and talked to all of my teachers and said, look, I'm going to college. And some of them laughed out loud. They literally laughed. They thought, you are going to college. Okay, that's funny. Well, 4 years later, I was in Jacksonville State University playing in that drum section. You see, once I determined this is what I want, then I started studying, and studying wasn't hard anymore. Taking books home was just something that needed to be done because I was going to be in that drum, and I became the section leader of the drum section. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
That's an
it's a
inspiring
matter of
story.
Well, it's true, and it can be true for anyone. Your desires, Paula, your desires are gifts from God. You have these desires, but so many people reject them. They say, no, that would be fun, but I just can't see myself doing that. Well, there's their problem.
Yes.
They need to see themselves there and say, yeah, I want to do that, and I'll do whatever it takes. Now, once you've done that, you know, my father was a disabled veteran. We lived out in the country and we were poor. I rode the bus to school. I didn't have the clothes. And going to college was expensive. How could I afford it? You know, and I had bad grades. All of the things were against me. But once I decided this is what I want to do, all of that cleared out. And it was a clear path to get where I wanted to go. And that's how nature works. That's the laws of nature. All of nature will work with you once you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Everything will work together to get you there. You just have to believe.
Yes, I believe that 100%. And actually, it's a perfect, I'm glad I talked to you today because, you know,
Me too. It's been
there's
fun.
things that are inspiring me right now and opportunities that are coming my way. And I'm taking action, but I'm not taking massive action. And I think you just changed me today. So thank you.
That's good.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Sounds funny when I do these podcasts, I meet such fascinating people who every time I do one, I take something from them that I implement into my life. And since I've been doing this and just opening my mind to all the things that are available out there, there's so much in my life that has changed over the past 2 years that I have been doing this podcast that, you know, I hope it's changing the listeners, but it truly is changing my life.
Well, I'm sure it is. You know, what you're doing is helping people, and that will come back to you 100 times over.
Yes. Yes. We learned that. I think that was last week. The gentleman talked about, and he has a difficult name for me to say, Yugun or something. Anyway, he talked about, you know, it's the first thing you must do in life is to give. And then when you
Yeah,
give and you're grateful, it comes back to you tenfold. But you have to give first. And by giving knowledge like we are right now and sharing the things that we've learned in our life, we're giving to the world. And when people take that knowledge and change their life, you know, we've had an impact on them, which
right,
gives us an impact on our own life. Makes you feel kind of good. Makes you feel all nice and warm and cozy.
right. On the Real Impact book website, realimpactbook.com, there's a link there that says help the children. And I'm giving these books out to disadvantaged communities, to nursing homes, to small libraries that don't have a big budget, and to schools that don't have a budget. And if you want to help with that, there's a GoFundMe. If you click on Help the Children, every penny that is donated goes toward purchasing these books to give in disadvantaged communities and for
Oh,
child
that's awesome.
literacy and continuing education.
That's awesome. So I want to thank you for being with us today. I really
Well, thank you
appreciate
for
you.
having me. It was
I
fun.
appreciate you giving those gifts to the listeners. I hope people take advantage of it and download your book. And it's surprising that even if you just do it for a couple of days, you'll start to see changes. And
That's true.
then it gives you the incentive to keep going.
That's right. Having a daily ritual, it's amazing what it will do to you because it keeps you on track.
That's like all the people who work out every day at a certain time every day and they don't miss no matter what, you know,
Right. It's a habit.
that's a habit. So again, I gotta sign off. So I really, really appreciate you. So Dennis's contact information and about the book will be in the show notes. And so feel free to download his book, download his gifts to us today. And I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Paula. Hope you'll have
You're
me again
welcome.
one day.
Yes. So if anybody'd like to reach out to me, you can find me at paulachristine.com. And we are trying to get reviews of the podcast. So if you don't mind, please go out there and review and let us know what you think. So take care, Dennis. It was really a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.